Hi, welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If you haven't, I'm Gemma and I talk about books, and this is my very late February wrap-up. I was ill for most of March. I lost my voice for 10 days. It's only just coming back, so this video will be filmed in batches because the voice does not last for more than about 10 minutes at a time. But I hope you enjoy the video anyway. So the first book I read in February was Wintering by Catherine May. I have actually had this book for a while, and when I bought it, it was in the self-help section of the bookshop. This is not a self-help book. This is a memoir. Wintering, in a sort of quick explanation, it's not necessarily about the season, although generally it can be, but it's about the identifying and the coming to terms with something ending, a big sort of life change. So it can be changing jobs, it can be moving house, it can be a serious illness or death of a loved one. So essentially this is sort of Catherine's story in dealing with a big sort of life event that happens and her having to realise that changes need to be made. And she meets and talks about this subject with a variety of different people who all explain how the season of winter affects them differently. So for the majority of people, wintering, it really will be quite specific to the season. So there are a lot of people who suffer from seasonal affective disorder, which means that during the winter months, during that cold period, they really struggle with their mental health, their physical health, and the whole sort of idea of hibernation really takes hold. There were a lot of references to just making plans for a new year, and this was a really interesting read for February because, you know, the last sort of 2 years have been really tough for everybody, and I always feel quite busy in December and January. I'm finishing things for the end of the year, ready for Christmas. Then there's Christmas and New Year and all the stuff that goes on alongside that. And then January, it's sort of plans and things I want to start and projects and things like starting a YouTube channel and all the stuff that goes along with that. And then I always feel a real dip in February and sort of trying to keep up that momentum. Because I actually read this quite slowly. I had decided in February that I would just take everything a little bit slower, and I wanted to take time to consider what the book was actually saying. The next book I read was Cross and Burn by Val McDermid. So this is the next book in the Tony Hill Carol Jordan series. I have mentioned this a couple of times, how much I love this series, how much I love Val McDermid's writing. This book was a bit of a disappointment, unfortunately. So this plot is a continuation, again, of the previous. It takes place about 3 months after the events of the previous book. And As usual, we've got a serial killer. I think I mentioned in my January wrap-up for the previous book that it had ended with the two main characters having a falling out. Something major had happened, they weren't talking, Carol Jordan had left the police. The entire plot of this book revolves around getting the two of them back into the same room again and talking, and getting Carol Jordan to rejoin the police. That's it. That's all this book is about. It's definitely my most disappointing out of this series, and it was disappointing because I love the characters and they're all really, really well written. Every single character is really well written. I think Val McDermid is such a clever writer. I'm just kind of a little bit disappointed in the way that she's taking the two main characters. The next book I read was The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. Now, I was super excited when I first saw that this was coming out. I feel like it's really necessary to say that this is not non-fiction. I've seen quite a few reviews from people who thought this was a true story and then they came away disappointed. This is not a true story. So what the author has done here is taken the real life person of Agatha Christie and the real life person of her husband, Archie, and then she has taken the notion of Archie's mistress, who was a real person called Nancy, but she has created a fictional version and named her Nan, and has based the entire book around the 11 days, I believe it was, when Agatha Christie famously went missing. It's all told from Nan's point of view and her experience of that time. It's all told from Nan's point of view. So we've got an unreliable narrator because, being the mistress, Nan is clearly only looking at things from her perspective. And you can tell that there's a kind of bitterness towards Agatha by Nan, because she's very critical about the fact that, you know, this woman is an author. She's not massively famous at this point. She's not the huge kind of crime queen that we sort of know her of now. Agatha Christie wasn't hugely famous at the time she went missing. She, you know, that definitely boosted her publicity and her sort of public appeal. And she's also very critical just about the fact that, you know, Agatha Christie, as a writer, creates and comes up with scenarios and people, and so in Nan's view that's effectively lying. And yet the entire book, being from Nan's perspective, is her guessing where Agatha went while she was missing, what she was doing, who she was with. The thing that I didn't get from this, and it kind of annoyed me, was the character of Nan was given a backstory that was clearly just meant to make you feel sorry for her. So I won't go into the details, but she, and this is where she really differed from the real Nancy, who was the mistress. The Nan that we get in the book, was raised in Ireland. She was sort of thrown out by her family due to various circumstances, and she ended up suffering a huge amount of abuse and eventually escaped and came to England. That entire sort of backstory just felt really, really forced to me, in an attempt to just say, well, everything she's done in this book and everything she's going to do in the future is because of the way she was treated as a child and as a young woman. There's a reveal in this which kind of explains, well, is meant to explain why Nan has become a mistress to Agatha's husband and why she has kind of got this vendetta against the author. And I just didn't like it. I don't like being told that I've got to feel sorry for a character. And I just didn't really care. And there's a dual timeline that goes on as well, in that we're getting this backstory. So we're sort of getting flashbacks of Nan's childhood and all the things that have happened to her and all these, you know, various scenarios and circumstances and things. And I just kind of skim read sort of flashback parts with Nan's backstory because I was just bored of her, and she just annoyed me too much, and I didn't really care, which sounds bad when you do actually read the book and what she went through. To say I didn't care sounds, it doesn't sound great. But I just didn't care about her as a character at all. And I just wanted more of Agatha Christie, to be honest. There was no need to be mentioning Agatha Christie at all. You know, you could have quite easily have just made this a random woman who went missing, whose husband had been having an affair, and this was just from the mistress's point of view. It really could have been, you know, you could have removed all of the Agatha Christie references, and I don't think this book would have been very different. If you're familiar with a lot of Agatha Christie's writing, not just the Poirot and Marple stories, but some of her other works, there are some clever little name-dropping references in here, but really I didn't take to this one at all, I'm afraid. But I will just say, the cover is beautiful. And it does definitely look good on a bookshelf. That's the spine. So it does look good. So the next book I read in February was Night Shift by Stephen King. This is his first short story collection. There are 20 stories in this book. I'm not going to talk about all of them because that will take hours. What I will say is that I think short story collections are really, really interesting, because whether they're all by the same author or different authors, you're pretty much guaranteed that there are going to be some that you love and some that you really, really don't. I always find it really interesting to see which stories grab me and which ones kind of fall a bit short and leave me kind of a bit sort of bored or just don't like them at all. I'm really not into extreme horror or like body horror, but actually the stories that grabbed me the most and I found more interesting and that I just kind of got more out of were the ones that were a bit more gory or gruesome. The stories that were definitely sort of down at the bottom of the list were the ones where just not a lot really happened. They didn't grab me, they didn't keep my attention. And the 4 stories that I would say were sort of my least favourites were I Am the Doorway, The Last Rung on the Ladder, I Know What You Need, and The Woman in the Room. And then the 4 that I really, really liked and just sort of, they gave me chills, or they made me, I didn't find them scary, but they definitely did what I thought they were supposed to do. They were Children of the Corn, which is probably the most well-known story in this collection, Grey Matter, The Boogeyman, and Quitters Incorporated. All 4 of them I thought were absolutely fantastic. They were quite gruesome. Grey Matter in particular is kind of nauseating. Yeah, as I said, isn't normally the type of horror that I go for, but actually I thought they were all brilliant. And something else that I thought was really, really interesting was, particularly having read The Stand at the end of last year, and then this being the first book of Stephen King that I read this year, to go from his longest ever book to his short stories, it kind of proves that he can actually do it. He doesn't have to ramble on for 1,000 pages. He doesn't need a cast of 30 characters. He can write really, really succinctly and just get to the point, do what he needs to do, have a good character, have a plot, and just get it done. There's a part of me that thinks that writing short stories actually takes a lot more, I'll say, skill than writing a huge, great long novel, because you've really got to pack a punch. You've got to create these brilliant characters, you've got to have a fantastic plot, you've got to really tell a story in a very limited number of pages, sometimes even words. And that to me is a lot harder than just running wild and, churning out 1,000 pages. I think, yes, having a long novel that people are going to stick with and invest in and want to carry on reading is fantastic, and it's, it is a huge talent to have. But to be able to write short stories and they're memorable as well. Having a short story that somebody will read in, possibly less than a day, because that was the thing that I did with this, was I read 1 story each day. To be able to do that and still come away at the end of 20 days and be able to say, these stories stood out for me. I can still remember what they were about. There was that scene or that image that was created that has stuck with me, and I've remembered it. That to me kind of really shows what sort of writer you are. So even though this was very hit and miss for me, some of the stories just didn't do it. The ones that did, I thought were absolutely fantastic. And then the final book that I read in February was my favourite book of the month, and probably one of my favourite books of all time. I've lost count of the amount of times I've read this, and I love it every single time I read it, and that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So to give you an idea of what this is about, we are following Jane Eyre from when she is a child, She's an orphan, she's sent to a boarding school, and then her story continues right up into an late teens, early 20s, where she becomes a governess and almost immediately falls in love with Mr. Rochester, who is her boss. And he pretty much falls in love with her as well, but he has been keeping secrets. And those secrets are exposed and they basically cause their world to fall apart. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. Massive spoilers. I don't know why I love this book so much, because I am really not a fan of romances. But this one, for me, it just does it every time. I completely fall in love with Mr. Rochester, despite the fact that he is, you know, a really flawed character, but he is, I mean, he's kind of the epitome of the brooding, you know, man in the big house. And this is a really gothic tale. We have a cast of characters who have all got their flaws and faults. There's the sort of secluded, isolated setting of Thornfield Hall, which is the house that Rochester owns, which is out on this sort of bleak and wild landscape. And there's a kind of mystery element to the story surrounding Rochester, his past, and how that affects his relationship with Jane Eyre. But I think that's why I love it. I think it's because it's not just a will they won't they relationship. There's no fluffiness to it, as I would say, and the dialogue between them is brilliant. There's a lot of banter. It's even mentioned by the characters that they treat each other as equals. Jane Eyre spends most of her life being treated as though she's nothing by almost everybody else that she meets, apart from Rochester, who talks to her like she's a human being with feelings, which she is. There are really funny moments in here, and there are some sweet and tender moments, and as I say, there's like this sort of mystery element, so there are points in the story where you're not sure what's happening, you're not sure what the secret is, and then when it's revealed it's quite shocking and you don't know where this is going to then lead our characters. I would say the only single thing that ever disappoints me on this book is a character called St. John, who I just don't like. You know, and he's not even supposed to be like a sort of villainous character. He just irritates me. He has a point to the story. You know, there is a point to his character, and unfortunately he is mentioned right at the end of the book, literally the last page. I just think you just didn't need to mention him. You just could have done without him completely. But otherwise, I love this book. So this is a Penguin cloth-bound edition, and I just think they're stunning. Really love them. And yeah.